Dexter Morgan.
In Dexter Resurrection, Angel Batista is the captain of Miami Metro with one mission: expose Dexter Morgan as the Bay Harbor Butcher. And today, I'll be going over every single theory about what will happen with Batista going forward, from the happy endings to the dark ones.
I'm only gonna say this once. Stay away from me.
The first theory regarding Angel Batista's fate involves him getting eliminated by a serial killer collective, specifically the Gemini Killer or the New York Ripper.
We all have that one case that haunts us.
Batista's investigation into Dexter could accidentally expose the collective operations.
What can you tell me to help me find him? What was he like here?
Making him a massive liability that they can't afford to ignore. And Batista is a by-the-book cop who's rarely had to deal with high-level predators like these killers. The Conclave represents this season's primary antagonist force, a network of killers operating in New York who are way more coordinated and ruthless than anything Miami Metro would have ever faced. Batista's relentless pursuit of Dexter might inadvertently threaten their operations.
Dexter Morgan planted Ryan's watch in Mia LaPierre's rental to frame her.
And these aren't the type of killers who will give him a warning. His death would serve multiple purposes for the show and the coming seasons. It removes a major threat to Dexter while demonstrating just how far Leon Prater's reach extends. Plus, it would show that even experienced cops like Batista are completely outmatched when dealing with this level of organized evil. Unfortunately, Batista lacks the survival instincts of someone like Dexter, or even Dokes. He trusts the system implicitly and follows procedure very closely, which makes him an easy target for killers who operate so far outside of the normal rules of society. But that's not the only way Batista could die protecting others. The second theory suggests that Batista may make a heroic sacrifice to save Dexter or Harrison, with the episode title Saved by an Angel serving as ominous foreshadowing. This would be the ultimate plot twist, transforming Angel Batista from Dexter's antagonist back to his ally in a single devastating moment. Despite everything Batista knows about Dexter, they still have decades of partnership and a mutual respect between them.
But you gotta think positive, bro. Because what we think creates the world around us. It's all about energy.
When push comes to shove, that history could override Angel's duty as a cop. Maybe Prater's conclave of killers will target Harrison to get to Dexter, inspiring a choice on Batista's part to throw himself in the line of fire. Maybe Dexter gets cornered by the remaining killers and Batista chooses to save his former partner instead of arresting him. It's important to remember that Batista has a daughter of his own, so he knows the importance of a child having their father in their life. His daughter might lose him if he sacrifices himself for Dexter and Harrison, but by that time, Ari will have had Batista in her life for much longer than Harrison has had Dexter. His daughter also has a loving mother and support system to help her if he was not around. Harrison only has Dexter, and Batista knows that. His sense of what is right and fair extends beyond the justice system. He's demonstrated this plenty of times. So if he feels in his heart that sacrificing himself to save his old pal, Socio, or his son, Harrison, is the right thing, then that is exactly what he will do. This would create maximum emotional impact for viewers while reinforcing the idea that Dexter has to confront the fact that good people get hurt in his orbit, especially the ones trying to stop him.
You don't want to get into this.
Or what? What are you gonna do?
It would also give Batista a complete character arc while highlighting the best parts of his character. But if you thought those theories were dark, the next one is so much darker. There's a theory that has Dexter himself killing Batista to protect his secret and his son, following a similar pattern that we've seen with Dokes and LaGuerta. Both Dokes and LaGuerta were dedicated officers who pursued Dexter until it literally killed them. They got too close to the truth, became threats that couldn't be negotiated with or misled.
You're the Bay Harbor Butcher.
I really hate that name.
Jesus Christ, man.
And as a result, they paid the ultimate price. Batista's knowledge and gut instinct about Dexter makes him the same type of existential threat, one that is impossible for Dexter to manage through manipulation or misdirection. Of course, Dexter didn't kill Dokes, Lila West did that, but he did consider it before instead settling on simply ruining his life. He also didn't get the chance to kill LaGuerta, but he was going to. If his sister Deb had not intervened, he would have certainly gone through with his plan.
Are you gonna kill her?
You need to leave. I need to finish this.
Dexter, you can't.
Harrison is the only family he has left, so if Batista doesn't back off of Harrison regarding the Ryan Foster investigation, or if he tries to separate them by arresting Dexter as the Bay Harbor Butcher, it stands to reason that Dexter may see no other choice but to take him out, and there is no Deb or Lila West here to save him from that decision this time. He may just have to go through with it, and there's plenty of evidence that he would do just that. Officer Logan is another indicator that he would kill Batista for Harrison's sake. When Dexter was imprisoned in Iron Lake, he only wanted to get back to his son.
Don't be a hero, Logan. I just need to get out and see my son.
With no other way out, he eventually killed Officer Logan, an innocent and good cop, so he could reunite with his son. Though it didn't pan out how he'd hoped, Dexter still made that rash decision in the name of being with his family. He could do the same this go-round to keep his son in his life. Batista has already manipulated and threatened Harrison.
This is a dark path you're going down.
Unlike Logan, who'd only shown Harrison honesty and kindness, Dexter killing Batista is not likely to have the same impact on Harrison as when Dexter killed Logan. Most importantly, when Dexter is cornered, his survival instinct always overrides sentiment. We've seen him sacrifice people close to him before when his secret was at stake. Killing Batista would represent the ultimate corruption of their friendship and mark Dexter's complete moral descent, and maybe leave us with a very dark season 2. It would also reinforce the pattern that anyone who tries to expose Dexter will eventually end up dead, regardless of their history together. It would be disappointing to see Dexter be the one who brings an end to Batista, but we all know he's capable of it and would probably do it in a heartbeat if it helped him meet the code and stay with his son. We can only hope that it doesn't come to that. But Batista's death could also be much more twisted. The fourth theory takes this concept and makes it a bit sadder by having Harrison, not Dexter, kill Batista. This would create the ultimate father-son connection and finally address their potentially shared darkness. It would also highlight the depth of what they're willing to do to protect each other. Harrison's moral code is still forming, and killing Batista, a genuinely good man who's just trying to do his job, would force Harrison to confront what he's capable of and what he's becoming. Is he following his father's path by choice, or is the Dark Passenger something hereditary that he can't escape?
You all know me as the Dark Passenger.
Harrison has been trying to differentiate himself from his father, often telling him that he is not like him, and even urged Dexter to turn himself in after he killed Logan. Harrison almost turned himself in for killing Ryan Foster. He doesn't want to be a killer. Where Dexter said he felt a release after his first kill, Harrison was haunted by his. But as we see from his fantasy of killing Elsa's landlord, his dark urges, particularly those that could protect people he cares about, are growing. There may be more overlap between Dexter and Harrison's codes than he thought, and he may come to accept it, especially as he and his dad become closer. Batista may end up as collateral damage and as a kill that allows Harrison to embrace parts of himself that he has desperately been trying to suppress. It would be nice to believe that Harrison is a bleeding heart who would never hurt anyone innocent, but the truth may be further from that than he'd like to admit right now. This would also test Dexter's reaction in fascinating ways. Would he feel pride that Harrison protected them, or horror at corrupting his son's innocence?
I'm just so angry. Like all the time.
This theory positions Harrison as a wild card whose actions could determine the entire future of the ever-dwindling Morgan family. Unlike Dexter, who has years of experience justifying his kills, Harrison would have to live with murdering someone who is objectively one of the good guys. Would killing Batista impact Harrison the same way that killing Ryan already has? He's been hallucinating his face, and when he had Ryan's watch, the ticking sound tormented him like something out of an Edgar Allan Poe poem.
And all I hear is this ticking all the time, and I can't live with it. I can't carry this guilt.
The same thing could happen if he has to kill Batista. It could cause a rift between him and his father again, or it could bring them closer together. Either way, there is a non-zero chance that Harrison will be the one to eliminate the threat of Batista, and the fallout could be catastrophic. Still, maybe Batista's death could serve a completely different purpose in the show's narrative. All of these theories killing Batista off could allow the show to fully transition from the Miami-based nostalgia of the original series to solely New York-focused storytelling. Batista represents the last major connection to the Miami setting, and his death would signal that Resurrection is completely moving beyond any callbacks or Easter eggs to form its own identity. From a storytelling perspective, this makes a lot of sense. The new series needs to establish its own mythology and relationships without constantly looking backward. Keeping Batista alive means always having that Miami connection hanging over Resurrection and guiding its path. No one wants to see Batista die, and it makes sense that with so many ties to Miami, Dexter would be haunted by his tragic history there. But still, if the show is to truly evolve, Miami would have to be old news, and Dexter's new life with his son in a new city would have to come to the forefront. Angel Batista's death would offer a clean break that allows future seasons to explore completely new territory without the weight of the past limiting Dexter's new life and activity. But what if Batista stays alive, having learned from all the personal loss that Dexter caused in the past? Batista's public accusation in episode 6 was a setup rather than a climax. Instead of just making wild claims, maybe he actually succeeds in getting an arrest warrant or official NYPD cooperation. He still hasn't located Dexter since he fled Iron Lake, but it's only a matter of time, especially since he has access to Harrison. This would escalate the threat level beyond a personal vendetta or need to know the truth into an institutional pursuit, the likes of which Dexter hasn't faced since he was arrested in Iron Lake. Batista might have learned from Lurch's mistakes and spent time to build an airtight case with proper department backing, both in the state of New York and in Miami. Having multiple officers and agencies involved would make it much harder for Dexter to eliminate the threat through his usual methods without further incriminating himself. I mean, how suspicious would it look if Batista died as he was closing in on a person he suspected to have been a serial killer? After the deaths of Maria, Dokes, and Logan, the coincidences would be almost too incredulous if Batista wound up dead too. Maybe Batista knows that. The context suggests that Batista's years of experience taught him that you can't take down someone as sophisticated as Dexter without serious resources and support. Going to the NYPD with this theory might have been the first step in a larger strategy to force the system to take action. Dexter has gotten away with so much, but if he keeps wreaking havoc on different communities, it will be harder and harder to accept his deceptive explanations as reasonable. With enough people asking questions, Dexter will have no choice but to face the music at some point. He can't kill them all, can he? And it begs the question, if Batista actually succeeds in his mission, but in a way that fundamentally changes the entire show. Instead of arresting or killing Dexter, his investigation forces Dexter to abandon his New York life and flee again, turning the series into a chase format. Even if Batista dies, there are bound to be enough people interested in confronting Dexter, whether it be from Miami, Iron Lake, or New York City, that his innocent act or his desire to stay underground will eventually fail him, forcing him to finally tell the truth. For this reason, killing Batista may not be as effective as convincing everyone around him and take his consequences head on. This theory is bogus, and Dokes was indeed the butcher after all. Rather than killing him off, this theory suggests that Batista wins in a roundabout way and creates a completely different kind of story. As a fugitive, Dexter would change up the show's long-standing dynamic from him being an unseen killer hiding in plain sight to being a known killer permanently on the run. This would open up the possibility for multiple locations, an entire slate of new allies, new enemies, and a much more dynamic storyline, unlike any show in the genre. Batista's victory would be rendered worthless if Dexter escapes justice, but can no longer maintain his normal life facade. This theory allows the show to explore what happens when Dexter's lies fall flat, when he loses all his anchors and safety nets and is forced to rely purely on his survival instincts instead of his ability to blend in. But if he is dedicated to keeping the code, i.e. not getting caught, Dexter will be forced to avoid this outcome at almost any cost. Before you watch any further, I'm happy to finally announce that I'm releasing the first limited drop of my t-shirts. At the start, there are only 100 available, so make sure you buy them while you can at dtmerch.store. Enjoy the video. But trust me, the theories only get crazier from here. One theory still suggests that because Batista knows he can't take down Dexter alone, he enlists the help of their former Miami Metro colleagues, Joey Quinn and Vince Masuka, to build a coordinated investigation. The gang's getting back together, y'all. This makes strategic sense when you think about it. Quinn's detective skills combined with Masuka's forensic expertise would create a formidable team with intimate knowledge of Dexter's methods. These guys worked alongside Dexter for years. They understand Dex in ways that New York cops never will. Not to mention that Quinn already has deep-seated suspicions surrounding Dexter, leading a double life. He was almost on him too when he hired his old pal Stan Liddy. In fact, the only real reason he backed off was because he was in love with Dexter's sister Deb. But now that she's dead and Batista is on his side, there's nothing to stop him from reopening his investigation. Plus, if Batista shares with Quinn that he thinks Dexter was partially responsible for Deb's passing, that would be all he needed to track Dexter relentlessly. And Masuka has always been a team player and endlessly curious. Knowing that Dexter could be responsible for the deaths of Dokes, Maria, and Deb would be enough to get him on board, assuming that his natural desire to get to the facts wasn't enough. Batista could use their help, and again, having a determined team around him would shield both him and the investigation into Dexter from going belly up. The theory leverages institutional memory and personal relationships from Miami Metro. Batista knows that someone as sophisticated as Dexter requires multiple angles of attack. You need detective work, forensic analysis, and people who can anticipate his moves because they've seen him operate up close. This would also provide major fan service by bringing back beloved characters while serving the narrative goal of escalating the threat through coordinated police work. Instead of another lone wolf investigation, you'd have a proper task force with the resources and knowledge to actually challenge Dexter. He wouldn't be able to slip away so easily this time. But what if seeing the bigger picture changes Batista's entire perspective? If Batista learns of Leon Prater's group firsthand, he may even conclude that the world actually needs Dexter's brand of vigilante justice. If he saw firsthand the coordination, brutality, reach, and scope of Prater's group, it could convince Batista that Dexter, despite his crimes, serves a necessary function in the world. Sometimes the enemy of your enemy inadvertently becomes an ally, even if the alliance is reluctant and hinges on necessity rather than respect or trust. This would show a complete moral pivot for his character that would be quite compelling, much like we've been witnessing in Harrison since reuniting with his dad in New York. This theory suggests that Batista would see killers like Lady Vengeance and the Gemini Killer and realize that removing Dexter might unleash something far worse on society. It transforms him from a determined pursuer of Dexter to a reluctant protector, understanding that some evils may be necessary to fight much darker ones. Harry saw that, and everyone believed he was a good cop, so why not Batista? He may even be a better ally than Harry, prioritizing protecting innocence over not getting caught, making Dexter an even more rounded out moral figure than he would be without Batista on his side. With this theory in mind, Batista could feed Dexter information about targets while maintaining plausible deniability within the department. He'd be the new moral compass and information source that Harry once provided, helping direct Dexter's killing toward the people who truly deserve it, rather than trying to stop him entirely. But what about justice? Batista finally achieves the justice he's been seeking, successfully arresting Dexter for both LaGuerta's murder and the Bay Harbor Butcher crimes. This theory treats LaGuerta's death as Batista's primary motivation rather than abstract justice. The personal stakes of avenging his ex-wife would drive him beyond normal police procedure into obsessive pursuit. Successfully arresting Dexter would provide closure to one of the series' most emotionally devastating murders, while giving Batista a complete storyline in Dexter's life, from grieving friend to procurer of justice. The arrest would need to be legally sound and stick, unlike previous attempts to expose Dexter. Batista would have built an irrefutable case that even Dexter's manipulation skills couldn't overcome. If he succeeded, this would finally get justice for LaGuerta and the rest of Dexter's innocent victims, gaining the vindication they deserve, and prove that the suspicions Dokes and LaGuerta held were correct all along, giving Batista the closure he's been seeking for so long now. But it could also result in Batista learning an even more devastating truth. This theory would require that Batista finds out that Deb actually killed LaGuerta, although Dexter orchestrated the entire situation. Learning that LaGuerta was killed by someone she trusted to protect an even greater monster would recontextualize her death as even more tragic. Rather than absolving Dexter, understanding Deb's involvement might convince Batista that the Morgan family's corruption runs deeper than anyone imagined. This revelation would be very hard for him to accept, and probably call into question all of the relationships he thought he could trust within the department. What would this mean for Batista's health and happiness moving forward? His victory over Dexter would seem so shallow with such a hurtful truth coming out. He could be destroyed by such information. He'd see that LaGuerta wasn't just killed by a vigilante, but murdered as part of an elaborate conspiracy that involved multiple people she considered allies. And if it could happen to LaGuerta, what would stop Batista from suffering similar betrayal? The theory suggests that discovering the full scope of manipulation and betrayal could either fuel Batista's pursuit of justice or destroy him from the inside and lead him to doubt all he thought he knew about truth and loyalty. The final theory introduces a completely unknown element, a third-party killer who eliminates Batista and frames either Dexter or Harrison for the murder. Similar to what happened with Lila West and Dokes in season 2, a third party intervening is not completely out of the question. Batista had already been overly involved in Detective Wallace and Oliva's investigation. He's compromising Dexter's relationships as well as Harrison's mental health. Lots of people could be interested in him going away for any number of reasons as he continues to complicate and meddle in business that they need in order. Prater could become bothered by Batista's investigation depending on what he learns about Dexter or what Batista learns about Dexter's comings and goings in New York. This might even introduce a new player who uses Batista's death to manipulate the police. This would transform Batista from active threat to tragic pawn in a larger game while dramatically raising the stakes for the Morgan family. And framing the Morgans would serve multiple purposes: eliminating a threat to other killers, turning law enforcement against the protagonists instead of having them focus on Prater or his antics, and create immense chaos in the storyline leading into season 2. Having someone frame Dexter or Harrison for Batista's murder would force them into a completely defensive position. Instead of managing one investigation, they'd be dealing with an active manhunt while trying to identify the real killer and clear their names. And for Dexter, possibly take out the person who set it all in motion. This outcome would definitely set the show up for a sophomore season that no one saw coming. Looking at all these theories, some are definitely more plausible than others. The alliance theories feel too optimistic for a show that's built its reputation on tragedy and moral complexity. Having Batista team up with Dexter or become his inside man would undermine the entire setup of their confrontation while setting up a new meaning for it. But still, it's not as probable as other theories, even the ones involving Quinn and Masuka. Batista has always worked as an almost perfect foil for Dexter. He's honest, good, remorseful, and Dexter is, well, Dexter. The odds of Batista having that dramatic of a turn in his personality at such an old age is not that plausible, but supporters of this theory can still hope. The death theories, unfortunately, seem much more likely given the show's history. Every cop who's gotten close to Dexter's secret has ended up dead, and there's no reason to think Batista will be different. Whether it's someone from Prater's killer group, Dexter himself, or Harrison protecting his father, Batista's investigation puts him in serious danger, and yet he refuses to back down. Things could look very different for him and his family if he continues with his obsession, and odds are he will. The most interesting possibilities might be the ones that fundamentally change the show's format. Having Batista succeed in forcing Dexter to flee would create a completely different dynamic for future seasons. A fugitive Dexter story could breathe new life into the franchise while respecting Batista's intelligence and dedication and forcing Dexter to learn new skills and solidify his dedication to his son. But again, the safest bet might be that Batista doesn't survive the season. The episode title, Saved by an Angel, feels like heavy foreshadowing for a heroic sacrifice. Having Batista die protecting the family he came to destroy would be quintessential Dexter, a story that is tragic, not entirely expected, and emotionally devastating. Whatever happens, Angel Batista's presence in Dexter Resurrection has already changed everything. His investigation forces Dexter and Harrison to confront their past while navigating a new threat they never would have anticipated. Whether he lives or dies, succeeds or fails, Batista has guaranteed that nothing will ever be the same for the Morgan family if he has anything to say about it. The writers have set up multiple possible outcomes, and that's what makes this so compelling. We could get the tragic hero story, the successful investigation, the moral pivot, or something completely unexpected that no one saw coming. All we know for sure is that Angel Batista came to New York with a mission, and he's not backing down until he gets justice for Maria LaGuerta or dies trying. If you enjoyed this video and want to see Leon Prater's entire plan explained, click the video on the screen.